Hello everyone, welcome to my session of Complete DevOps course. And in today's session, we'll talk about Ansible demo. In my last session, I spoke about the theoretical part of Ansible, wherein I explained what is Ansible, what is configuration management tool, why do we need Ansible, what are the prerequisites of Ansible, differences in between Ansible and Puppet, inventory files in Ansible, and various components of Ansible like Ansible modules, Ansible playbooks. Today, we'll see everything in practicals. We'll try to see what Ansible Playbook is, what are the different components which you need to know even before you start working on Ansible Playbook. It's pretty much important for you to understand. So I welcome you all again in my DevOps complete course. In case if someone is watching my video for the first time, then I strongly insist go ahead and watch my previous videos also, because that will give you ample amount of information on all the things which you need to know, which is important to create foundations of DevOps. And after this video will be very much helpful for you. Also, in case if you feel as if my video is going to provide support or going to provide information about other learners, about any of your family friends, please share it with others also. And please share, please subscribe my channel and support my channel with your subscription. Okay, so now let's begin. So in my today's session, we are going to talk first about, we'll talk about how to install Ansible. That will be the first thing which we'll understand, because in my last session I explained theoretically about Ansible. I did not explain anything about installation or about execution of commands for Ansible. But the first thing which we'll begin today with is installation of Ansible. After that, so this will be first topic which I'll be talking about. Second thing which I'll be talking about is passwordless authentication. It's also a topic which I discussed theoretically in my last session, passwordless authentication. It is very much important because with the help of Ansible, you are going to interact with hundreds, thousands of machines. And without passwordless authentication, you will not be able to achieve automation. And automation is a word, is a kind of buzzword which I'm talking since day one of my DevOps complete course session. And without passwordless authentication, certainly you will not be able to achieve complete automation. Another thing which we are going to talk about today is Ansible inventory. This also I spoke about theoretically in my previous session. Today I'm going to create some inventory of all the servers, and I'm going to show you how inventory looks like and where the actual location of inventory should be. And after that, we'll talk about Ansible adhoc commands. I'll explain what Ansible adhoc command is theoretically also in today's session. Why do we need Ansible adhoc commands? And here we will see some interview questions also, and this will be very much important. Today I'm going to talk about some very important interview questions also. So please stay tuned and get to know about some very important interview questions which are very commonly asked in Ansible. And then we will learn about Ansible playbook, and then we will learn about Ansible roles. So let's begin our today's session. So first thing which we'll learn about is how to install Ansible. So now I'm going to show, and in case if you are very much new to Ansible, then I strongly insist to start with Linux operating system and configure your Ansible setup with Linux operating system. But yeah, in case if some are Mac users or some are Windows users, please post your comments there in, please post your comments there in the comment section. And certainly I'll create videos for Windows users, and I'll provide insights to how to work on Mac operating systems configurations also. But it's quite similar the way we are using for Ansible. Okay, so now the first thing is, in order to work on Ansible, first you need to have, like the way I explained in our last session, whenever you're working on Ansible, you have at least two systems and at max any number of systems. First system is going to be Ansible server. So this is the first thing which you will need, Ansible server. And there will be one or many target servers you can have which will be connected to Ansible servers. So they can be one or they can be many target servers. These are Ansible target servers, which can be one or many. Target servers should be there. So now what I'm going to do is, just to keep things simple and just to give you proper understanding, because many of my viewers will be first timer to Ansible and many one who will be experienced also, I'll give ample amount of information for you also to understand Ansible even deeply. So stay tuned, viewers. So now what happens is, in order to have the Ansible setup, I'll create two Linux machine. Both are of Ubuntu operating systems, and I'll work on that. So what I've done is I've launched two Ubuntu servers in AWS. Now I'm going to connect to it, and I've already connected by using MobaXterm. Now here is my Ubuntu. So now what you will do? Now we are talking about Ansible installation. So in order to install Ansible, the first thing which you have to do is, whenever you launched your EC2 instance for the first time, the first thing which you have to do is you have to execute update command. And this will be only for the first time when you are executing, so that all the packages which is a part of this specific machine which you created just now, which is very fresh, will be updated. So that will be the first thing which you have to do. So the command which you have to execute is sudo apt update. Don't worry, I'll put all these commands also in the description section of my video so that you understand all these commands properly. So this will be the first command which you will be executing. As you execute this command, you see a number, it takes few seconds and it updates all the packages which is a part of your Ubuntu virtual machine which you have created just now. Now, what is APT? APT just now, which I have executed the command with, is the package manager used in Ubuntu. It stands for Advanced Packaging Tool. It is the package manager. So what is APT? APT is nothing but it stands for Advanced Packaging Tool, and this is the package manager used in Ansible only. Remember this, okay? So now this is not a command. This is APT is a command, right? But what I wrote was not a command. I just thought to clarify you what APT is, so that it becomes clear to you and don't get confused that APT equals to, and this entire thing is a command. No, don't get confused, please. Okay. So now let's move on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the installation part of Ansible. Now it's very easy to install Ansible in with the package manager APT. Now, in order to install, what I'm going to do is I'll just execute the command apt install ansible. And as I execute this command, you see, it's asking, do you want to continue? Yes, I want to continue. And I'll just give yes to the prompt and it is installing Ansible package for me. It takes few seconds and it will install entire Ansible package for me, which is a part of my package manager apt. Now, as Ansible gets installed, you will be able to execute all the Ansible related commands. But a question might come in your mind: is this so simple? Because I'm pretty much sure that you have already tried to explore Ansible there in the Ansible documentation, or perhaps you'd have tried to explore Ansible there by seeing other videos also, and there you would have seen lengthy documents to install Ansible. So just to give you some insights. So now Ansible installation, the documentation, if you'll follow the Ansible documentation and if you'll try to refer the Ansible documentation for Ansible installation, then you might get confused because the document which Ansible has created is very, very generic. Because this document, when Ansible created, they wanted to create this document which is for Windows also, which is for Mac also, which is for different variation, different distribution in Linux operating systems also. So it's not as in it's specific to Linux only. And in order to work with that, you have to install pip and then you have to execute pip commands and Python commands, and then you will be able to install Ansible. And this is the kind of lengthy process. But the more recommended process is, in case if you're using a Linux-based operating system or a Mac-based operating system or a Windows-based operating system, it's more recommended way is to use their respective package manager. For example, if you're using a Linux or if you're using a Windows Ubuntu operating system, then you will use apt as the package manager, like the way I have done in my demo. If you're using Mac operating system, then brew is the package manager there in Mac, and you will simply execute brew commands. If you're using Windows operating system, then chocolatey is the package manager which we use there in Windows operating system. So try to use respective operating system related package manager. It will be very, very easy for you to work on this. And what we are going to learn is we are going to learn doing things in an easier way rather than complicating things and just messing up things and getting a part of procrastination and just delaying things because we don't understand things. We're not going to do that, at least not in my videos. Okay. So now what we are going to do is we have just installed Ansible. Now, once you have installed Ansible, another thing which you need to understand is how will you list down the version of your Ansible. So it's very easy to list down version of your Ansible. Just execute Ansible hyphen hyphen version. And since you have installed Ansible, you can see the Ansible version also, which says that you've installed Ansible core version 2.16.3. Okay, so now in my last session already I said that the Ansible is completely based on Python. So whenever you run Ansible, what it does is it in turn triggers some of the Python command for which this you no need to be expert in Python. Ansible internally calls in some Python command and runs execute some Python command for that. Okay, so now Ansible is installed. What is the next thing which you need to do? Now, in order for you to work on Ansible, like the way I said, that you need to have two things. You need to have Ansible server. The first thing which you need to have is you need to have one Ansible server. And second thing which you need to have is Ansible target server. So I've already created Ansible server. This thing I have already created. I've already installed Ansible also on my Ansible server. Now, next thing which I have to look for is Ansible target server. So now I do have, like the way I said, I've created two servers for myself. in both are in Windows. And here in my second server, I am going to set up the Ansible target machine. So now I'll select my Ansible target, take the public IP address and connect to it. I've already connected to it, and this is my second server which I'm going to use as the target server. Now what I have to do, I've already explained about passwordless authentication. By means of passwordless authentication, what is going to happen? I will be able to execute any of the Ansible related operations on my target server without any prompt or password. This is what a simple meaning of passwordless authentication is. If in interview somebody asks you what is passwordless authentication, what do you understand with passwordless authentication? Simple meaning is to perform any task in any of the machine, in any of the server without the prompt or password, without passing in, without punching in password. If you are able to perform any of the activity, then that is called passwordless authentication. So the first interview question which you will get in Ansible, will certainly you will get in Ansible, is I'll also take a separate session in Ansible for interview question also, because it is very very much essential that you know everything about Ansible before you appear for an interview. So the first interview question which you might get is, so now let's do one thing. I'll create a separate section here and I'll write interview question and I'll try to just jot down some of the interview question here also. But later on, I'll take a separate session on only on the Ansible interview question, so that you understand about all the Ansible related interview questions. So the first question which you may get in Ansible is, what is passwordless? What is passwordless authentication? Passwordless authentication. This could be your first interview question, which you certainly may get. Very, very important interview question. Okay. So now in passwordless authentication, like the way I explained, what happens is you will be able to perform any of the activity there on the target server without passing on any password. This is called passwordless authentication. Now let's see if passwordless authentication comes by default. So now in order to test that, I'll take the private IP address. Try to take the private IP address always while logging in. You can take public IP address, but if you want to just establish some passwordless authentication, create the Ansible server and Ansible target configuration, then always use the private IP address of the server, because it's private, it's more secure. Now, I've taken the private IP address. Now I am into my Ansible server, Ansible master server. Okay, also you can say, and here I'll say SSH space private IP address, and I hit enter. What it's asking, it's saying, okay, do you want to continue? I'll say yes, I want to continue. What it says permission denied. I don't have permission at this point to just connect to my target server without any password. Now there are multiple ways you can do this, and if you'll refer again documentation, you will find that there are multiple other videos also which you can refer to perform this passwordless authentication. But I'm afraid that many a times this passwordless authentication will be very cumbersome, very clumsy, and you will find it very, very difficult to understand. And I'll try to explain it in very, very simple way. In my session, in my class, in my videos, I'll try to make it very simple so that you can understand the entire process in such simple way so that you can easily implement it. You can easily explain it in your interview also. Okay, so now let's try to understand it. See, the easiest way to perform passwordless authentication is by using SSH copy ID command. So SSH copy ID command is the easiest way. This is the easy way. This is the easy way to perform. This is the easy way to do it. But whenever you're using this SSH copy ID, sometimes you don't have permissions. Sometimes this SSH copy ID does not have permission to copy the key from one system and take it to another system. Sometimes it does not have permission. So in order to do that, what you will do, we will see the even easier way in my session. So let's try to understand that. So now, in order to understand that, what I'll do is first I'll create some keys. Now, in order to create key in a Linux machine, there is a command which is called ssh-keygen. So when you execute this command, ssh-keygen in a Linux machine, what happens? You just type this command and keep hitting enter till the time you get your prompt back. So this is the way you got your prompt back. And now when you have executed ssh-keys and command, it has created some keys. So now those keys are present in this specific path. So now if you'll do ls-l to this path, what you can see is it has created certain keys. You see, it has created this key and this key. This key is which is not having dot pub as the suffix is called the private key, and this key which is having dot pub at the suffix is called public key. Now private key you are not going to share with anyone, because private key normally you use to log in into this machine only. It always remains with you. You can share public key to other machines, to other servers, and whenever you are sharing this public key to other servers, this server will have the control, this server will have the authority to log in into, to connect to other server without any password, with a passwordless authentication method. So what I'm going to do, where I've executed this command. I'm just repeating, I have executed this SSH keygen command in in my Ansible server, not on the target server, in my Ansible server, Ansible master server or Ansible server, Ansible controlling server, the server which is going to control all the target server. There I have executed the SSH keygen command. As I've executed SSH keygen command, I've generated multiple keys. Now, private key, I'm not going to share with any other server, but I can share the content of the public key, or I can share the public key with other servers. So now let's list down the content of this public key. So now where it is at slash home ubuntu dot ssh, and I want to just list down the content of this key. So now when I did, I found that the content of this key, this file is this. So now I'm going to just copy this. Right, I'll just copy this, and after I copy this, I'll go to my target server, and in my Ansible target server also there should be a file which is with the name authorized file. So what I'll do, I'll first list down the content of this directory. Now I see this directory is having already a file. I did not create this file. You saw, I did not create this file. This file already exists. Even when you create your machine, this machine, every machine as you create will have a file which is with the name authorized keys. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open this authorized keys, and I will just paste the key which I copied from there. So now let's open this. So now dot ssh slash authorized keys, and this I'll open. Let's open this. Now this is already having a key. I no need to worry about this. I'll just paste the key which I copied from there. So I no need to worry about what it is there, whether it is having a key or not, or whatever it is. I no need to worry about this. I will just paste the key which I copied from there. So I'm just going to paste it. That's it. That's it, viewers. Okay, so now I'm just going to save and come out of this. Now I'll come back again to my Ansible server, and here this time I'm going to execute SSH and the private IP address of my target server. For the last time you saw what happened, it gave me permission denied error. Now let's hit enter. Now you see it did not give me a permission denied error. Now I am into my target server. I connected to my target server, and viewers, this is the simplest way which you can set up, which you can use to set up your passwordless authentication. So what I've done, I have done couple of things to set up the passwordless authentication. So in order to set up the passwordless authentication, what I've done, so for passwordless authentication, what I've done, I had the ansible server ansible server and I had target server. So in Ansible server, I have executed the command ssh-keygen, and it has generated two files. One was the private key, and second was public key. I have taken the content, taken this public key, and I have pasted there in a file which is with the name authorized keys in target server. So I've taken this public key and I've just copied and pasted in authorized keys there in my target server. This is what I have done, as simple as that. Okay, this is what I've done, as simple as that. In very simple way, this is what I have done. So I'll strongly insist all my viewers to please follow these steps and try to set up passwordless authentication. Now, passwordless authentication is set. Isn't it easy? So in no time, I am able to now install Ansible, and I am able to do passwordless authentication also. All right. So now next thing which you need to do is, after you have done this, now this is the time when we start working on our Ansible. Now this is the time when we start executing our Ansible commands. So now what happens is, in Ansible, what we do, in Ansible, we write Ansible playbooks. Okay, so now first understand what is Ansible playbooks. Now it's very much important for you to understand. So now the script which we write in Ansible is known as Ansible playbook. Ansible playbook. So now the first thing which you need to understand is what is Ansible playbook. So now this is the first thing which you need to understand. What is Ansible playbook? Now we all know some shell commands or some shell script, right? So what we do in order to write a shell script, in order to write a, if I have to write a shell script, what I'll do is I'll create a file which is of the format .sh. This will be the format of my file if I have to create a shell script. If I have to write a Python script, if I have to write a Python script, then I'll create another file which is of the format .5. Similarly, in order to write some Ansible script, what we do is if I have to write an Ansible script, then the file format which I have to use is .yml or .yaml. So either of the name, either of the format type you can use if you have to write an Ansible script. Now the Ansible script is also known as Ansible script is also known as Ansible playbook. So in case if someone is asking you, did you write Ansible playbook? So what actually they are asking? They are basically asking, did you write Ansible scripts? So Ansible playbook is nothing but it's the another name of Ansible script, which is written in either .yml format or .yaml format. This is very, very important for you to understand. Okay, but now here I have a question. Is it always important to write an Ansible playbook? Or forget about writing Ansible playbook always. Is it always important to write a shell script? Or is it always important to write a Python script? No, it's not always important to write shell script or Python script. For example, if I have to list the content of a directory, then what I'll do, I'll execute the ls command or I'll execute the ls-ltr command so that I get to know, okay, fine, this is the content of my directory. For this, I don't need to write a Python a shell script. I can simply execute a shell command for that. Right. Similarly, if I have to execute any Python command, then I simply type Python 3. It opens a prompt for me and I can simply execute some of the Python command also here. Maybe some Python 3 install ABC package of Python, ABC module of Python. I can just execute some Python command for that. I don't need to write the Python script to execute or to perform simple task. So similar to that, if I have to write a, if I have to write one, if I have to perform some smaller task, right? If I have to perform some smaller task, then I no need to write as altogether an Ansible script for that. I no need to write Ansible playbook for that. I can just go ahead and execute some of the Ansible commands also. There is an Ansible term for such thing, which is to which we call as Ansible ad hoc commands. Like there is a shell command, there is Python command. Similarly, there is Ansible command also to which we call in terms of Ansible as Ansible ad hoc commands. For example, I'll give you one scenario. So the scenario is, we'll mostly talk about real-time scenarios, okay? Some industry-based scenarios in my session so that you understand actually where we are going with this. So say scenario number one, we'll talk about multiple scenarios. So scenario number one, what is the scenario? Scenario is create a directory, create a directory, all right? Or create a file. Now these are file in maybe 100 servers. These are very easy tasks. You are just asked to create a file or create a directory in hundreds of servers. For that, you no need to write a full-fledged Ansible script. You can just execute some simple Ansible command and this will suffice. This will do the job for you. This will do exactly same thing like the way you can execute a simple shell command rather than Linux command, rather than writing entire shell script. The Ansible command will do quite the same thing. Now let's first understand, and the term for Ansible command is that in Ansible terms, we call it as Ansible ad hoc commands. In terms of Ansible, we call it as Ansible ad hoc command, basically ad hoc commands. So now how Ansible ad hoc command looks like, let's try to see it in practicals also. Now, in order to write Ansible ad hoc command, what you will do is you will have to just, the first thing which you have to do in order to write Ansible ad hoc command is you have to create an inventory of your own. What is inventory? Inventory is something which we already discussed in our previous session as well, wherein inventory contains all the details of all your target servers. It contains either IP address or it contains host name of all your IP addresses. You can have one server as your target, one server as a target server, or you can have 100 servers as a target server. You can have combinations of different operating system as a target server. You can have groups of different servers as a target server, which we already discussed in a theoretical session also. Okay, so now the first thing which we are going to do is we are going to create an inventory for ourselves. So let's create one inventory ourselves. Let the name of inventory will give us inventory only. You can give any other name of your choice. I'm just giving the name as inventory. If you feel as if you want to give some other name, you are most welcome to give some other name also. Here, I'll give the private IP address of my target server. If you are having more than one server, you can just appending another server. For example, you have one more server with the name one with the IP 172.172.32.7.50. You are just going to append below it, and you will keep appending below this, and your inventory file will have the records of all your target servers. Right. But as of now, we have only one server. So let's see whatever we are going to do with one server, the same thing you're going to do with 100 servers also. So let's save this and come out of this. Now, what happens is by default, Ansible has a directory to save the inventory file, which is by default directory for Ansible. And this is another interview question. What is the default directory for Ansible where Ansible creates its inventory file? So the default directory for Ansible is /etc /ansible/hosts. So this is the default. Host is the name of the file basically. This is the name of the file and this is the directory. So in this file, all the host details, all the target server details are present. But it's not recommended always to use the Ansible default directory. It's always recommended to create your own inventory file where you're executing your command like the way I've done. I've created my inventory file in this location and I'm going to execute the Ansible command exactly at the same location where I have created my Ansible inventory file. Okay, you can give any other name. That's okay. There's no restrictions that you have to give the name of the inventory file as inventory only. If you prefer to give some other name, you can do that. So when you are practicing, looking into my videos, you try to give some other name to the inventory file and just put in the comments in case if it's not working. Okay, so now let's try to execute your first Ansible ad hoc command. So first Ansible ad hoc command which I want to execute is Ansible-I inventory-m, and I want to execute one shell command, and I'll give some attribute as something, maybe uptime, or I want to create a directory mkdir with the name DevOps Ansible. Okay. So now what hyphen m is, what this minus m is, what shell is, what hyphen a is. I'm going to explain everything. What hyphen I is, I'm going to explain everything. But I strongly insist first to execute this command and see what it is doing. Okay, so let's first execute this. As of now, if I come here and if I execute a ls command, it's not having anything like the way you can see. Now you see, I am doing this, but now here I have to tell to Ansible where you have to execute this command. Yes, you're right. I have passed the name of the inventory, but still I have to inform Ansible that which all IP addresses I have to execute these command on. Now, if as of now in my inventory, there is only one IP address, but what if there are more than one IP address? So in case if there is one IP address, I can just write my IP address as like this. That's fine. Even this is going to work. But what if you have more than one IP address? What if you have hundreds of IP addresses? Then there is other way. You can just create some host groups. You will be able to create host group, and you will be able to execute your Ansible command together in all the servers, which is a part of your host group. I'm going to explain you that thing also in few minutes. But now let's see, there is an easy way to do that. Just write all. So if you're writing all, then what happens is Ansible executes this command. Now you see what it says. It gave you the private IP address of your target server and it says that changed. Now if you come to your target server and do a ls, you see it has created a directory which is with the name Ansible DevOps. And this is created with the execution of your Ansible command in which server? Server with the IP address 172.31.2215, which is the IP address of your Ansible server, and the IP address of your target server is different, which is 172.31.750. These two are different. You see, these two are different IP address. This one and this one are different IP address. So with the execution of the command, it has created one directory in your target server, which is with the same name which you passed in your Ansible command. Now, what is this minus I? Minus I, by using minus I, you will pass the name of your inventory, the inventory file where your IP address, all the list of your IP addresses are present. You will pass by using minus I flag. Now, in case if you are using the default path of Ansible, you don't need to pass this, which is /etc/Ansible and /host. Then you know to give minus I. But like the way I said, it's not recommended. It's always recommended to create your own inventory file in the same path where you are executing the command. It is very much easy for you to to understand, and very much easy for you to manage it in such way. So please try doing this. When you're practicing it, create your own inventory file. What is minus M? Minus M stands for module. Now a question might come in your mind, which module to use, which attribute will pass on to which module, so on and so forth. Now for that, the easy answer is that you refer Ansible documentation, because nobody knows everything, and this is universal truth, my viewers. Okay, nobody can know everything. So now what you will do, if you have to know about Ansible modules, then open the browser and just type Ansible modules, and everyone does it. Even we, when I write any Ansible script, then I prefer to come here. I prefer to reach out to Ansible documentation and try to find the Ansible modules there in the list which it's provided. Because Ansible, there are lots of contributors, lots of supporters, lots of the contribution stack or the contribution groups for Ansible, which are creating modules, which are contributing to this Ansible module group. Now, what happens is nobody can be updated, nobody can keep a track of all the updates, which is either made by Ansible or which is made by Ansible contributors. So it's always good to come to this Ansible documentation and check for the module which is present. So now the module which I've used in this case is to execute a shell command is shell. So now I'll search for that shell. So now as I find this, you click on this shell, and now you see you have entire everything. You have the synopsis. So now I know, okay, fine. If I'm using shell, then with the shell I can use some attribute. I can use certain attribute with, and those attribute, and those attribute I can pass some of the any of the Ansible, any of the shell command I can pass. Now this is the way we write Ansible playbooks that I'm going to explain you in few minutes itself. But in order to understand your modules, Ansible documentation is the best place, because like the way I said, otherwise what happens is you will just lose the track, because Ansible perhaps tomorrow comes up with some new module, or perhaps update in this shell module itself, and if you're not referring this, then perhaps your playbook will be wrong, or you won't get the desired output. So it's always recommended to refer this documentation. Right. So now these are the ways you are going to execute some Ansible ad hoc commands. So please refer this and try to do that. Let's execute some more. You can just pass some more commands, maybe under attribute. If you write df, then you will get to know, okay, fine, these are the file system, these are the file utilization, these are the space utilization by the file. And in case if you want to see execute some more commands, maybe if you execute uptime as the command, then I'll get to know, okay, fine, these are the uptime of the of your machine. Which machine? Your target server only. So this is the way you will execute your Ansible ad hoc command. So what we have learned till now, in no time, my viewers, we have learned now how to install Ansible, how to do passwordless authentication, and what are Ansible ad hoc commands. Isn't it interesting? Right? Ansible is very, very interesting, my viewers. Try to refer this, try to consult this. You will get to know about lots of things. Okay, so now the next thing which you need to understand is what happens in case if there are multiple groups. Few minutes back, I was talking about different group of servers, because it might happen that in some of the servers my team is managing, I am responsible for some of the servers, some other teams are responsible, and other teams don't want me to make changes in the server or in the group of server which they are using. But in case if I'm using all, with the use of all, I'll be able to execute same command there in all the server which is present there in my inventory. So what I have to do is I have to create certain groups there in inventory, so that I'll be able to easily segregate the server which is for different team and the server which is for different team. Because it might happen that you have different team in your organization, right? You have maybe you have the categories of servers, like you have DB servers, you have DB servers, you have web servers, right? You have servers, you have front end servers, you have back end servers, you have BE servers. So many different servers you can have in your organization. Right. So you can have different types of servers in your organization, which is managed by different team, of course. So now no team, no other team would like you when you do not belong to, when you are a part of some different team, they don't want you to disturb their servers. So what you have to do in such cases, you have to create a group of your own. So now in order to create a group of your own, what you will do is you will open the inventory file and you will start grouping it. In order to group, here you have to write the name of your group. So maybe you would like to create your first group as DB servers. You will create your another group as web servers, and here under web servers you give some other IP 172.32. As of now, I'm just giving with example 70.51 maybe, and again here you will create a front end servers, and here you will write some other IP address 172.33.8.52. Right, so these are some of the examples. Like this way you will create group. You will be able to put one or more than one IP addresses there in each group. That is also possible. Now whenever you, these brackets are very much important. You cannot create a group without these brackets. You cannot simply write DB servers. You'll have to put that DB server within bracket only. That is how we are making a group. Okay, so now when the groups is made, as of now I do have one IP address, so let there be only one group. So now when you have only one group, in that case what you can do is instead of writing all, you can write the name of group. So instead of writing all, you will write your name of the group, which is DB servers. Now you see it's giving same output like the way it was giving there in all. Right, so this is the way you will be able to create multiple host groups there in your Ansible inventory. Another very important question. So question might come in this way: how will you execute certain different tasks to different group of servers? So how you will do that? You will be able to perform it by executing the commands, commands using using the name of the group which you have created within your inventory. Okay, so I hope it's clear till here. I hope you are understanding this. If you're understanding, don't forget to support my channel by subscribing it and watch all the videos till the end. It will be very much important and essential for you. Okay, so now let's talk about playbooks. Now we learned a lot about ad hocs. I believe you understand also what is ad hoc command, and you got the idea of how to create your ad hoc command also. So now let's try to understand what actually playbook is, and let's take a scenario rather than simply writing a playbook. Let's take a scenario where we are going to write a which we will use to write a playbook. So scenario which we have to use playbook for is, what I have to do is I have to install a web server which is nginx, and second thing which I want to do is I want to start nginx. I want to start Nginx server. So these are the two tasks which I have to do. So now I have to do two tasks. Remember, not one. I have to do two tasks to perform quite the same thing. Now, in order to execute these two tasks, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a playbook. So now let's start writing a playbook. So now I'll write my first playbook. So let the name be playbook1.yml. Whatever name you wish to, you can give. So in case if you're giving some other name and if you're getting some error, please put in the comments on the errors which you are getting. This will be very much beneficial for you too. You will be able to understand different situation scenarios where you get error and how to troubleshoot into that. Okay, so now when you create this, now the first thing which you have to do is whenever you are writing a playbook, it will be very important to start your playbook. So now any of the playbook always start with three dashes. Any of the playbook, you will always start with three dashes. So this three dashes is the indication that you are going to start a playbook from this point. This is your first playbook. So now don't worry, I'll try to keep it very simple because I believe for many of my viewers this will be the first playbook which you would have seen. So I'll try to keep it very simple so that you understand the entire flow properly. So now whenever you are writing three dashes, the next thing which you will do is you will give a name to your playbook. So you will give hyphen name. So hyphen is very much important whenever you are writing playbook. Hyphen, because hyphen gives the feeling that okay fine, you are creating a list of your something. So now hyphen name. So what I'm doing is hyphen name is the name of the playbook which I am creating. So what I'm going to create, this is my first playbook which I'm going to create: install and start nginx server. This is the name of the playbook which I want to give, which I want to create. Now, I said that there the three hyphens says this is the starting of your playbook. So maybe if you want to write some other playbook, what you can do is you will just give three hyphens, and you will say, okay, name is install, and start some other server, maybe Tomcat server now. So you can create multiple plays in the same playbook. That is also possible. Multiple playbooks in the same file also you will create. But whenever you are creating a separate playbook, always start with three hyphens. So three hyphen is the indication that you are starting the playbook from this point. different three, if you're putting three hyphens multiple times, that basically means you're writing multiple playbooks in the same file. Okay. So now, once you are done with this, after that, what you have to do is you have given a name to your playbook. As of now, let's keep it simple. Let's write only one playbook. Let's create only one playbook in this file. So now, once you are done with this, after that, what you're going to do, where you are going to run this playbook. So in order to tell Ansible that, okay, fine, I want to run my playbook here. So you can write host, and after host, you can write the group of the server also, and you can write all also. So now you know the difference in between all and the group. If you're writing all, basically you are executing your playbook in all the servers which is a part of your inventory file. But if you're mentioning some specific group, that basically means you want to execute your Ansible playbook only to the IP addresses or only to the servers which you have mentioned under that specific group. After that, you have to be you have to after that, there could be multiple scenarios. Now there could be the scenario where you want to run the playbook with the same user with which you have logged in. As of now, I have logged in with the user which is Ubuntu. My Ubuntu user might have elevated privileges to perform some administrative level task, or might not have, because a root user do have very elevated privileges. Root user is like admin of any machine, and installation of task, uninstallation of any installation of any application, uninstallation of any application, deletion of a user, creation of user are normally administration level tasks, which a normal user will not be able to perform. So in order to give elevated privileges, what you have to do is you have to become some super user like root user. So in order to do that, what you have to do is you have to write become root. So now in case, if you can become any user, it's not specific that you have to become root user only. You can become any user in that case. If you have to become some other user, you can write become underscore user, and whatever username you can provide, you will be that will be fine. So now what you have done till now, you have first given the name. This is the name of the Ansible playbook which you want to create. Then you have given the host where you are going to execute your Ansible playbook. And then you have written, okay, fine, you become the root user, because in order to attain some elevated privileges, some super user, some admin level privileges, you have said, I want to attain some elevated privileges in order to perform some specific task. Because like now what you have to do, you have to install Nginx. So in order to install Nginx, you have to have some elevated privileges. In order to give you example, when I came to my target server, and here if I execute the command apt install nginx, then you see what it says. It says that unable to acquire something. It says that permission denied, because I am not a sudo user. In order to install, now what I will do, I will execute the command apt install nginx, and then if I execute this command, I will be able to execute, because I have attained some elevated privileges, some super user privileges by appending, by adding this sudo in front of my apt install nginx command. Now I'm not going to install it, because it will be the task which will be done by our playbook at this point. Now, in order to see if Nginx is installed here, you have to execute the command systemctl status and Nginx. Now, what you see, Nginx service could not be found. Now, after I'll execute the Ansible playbook, you will see that Ansible will be installed here, right? So now you come back to your Ansible server or Ansible controlling server. And now what you have to do here is, here from this point, you have to create tasks. Okay, so now it might happen that for the first time when you are writing this Ansible playbook looks very tempting to you, but don't worry. Gradually, as you will start, it might be very daunting to you, but don't worry. In case as you will start writing Ansible playbook, gradually you will get hang of it, and it will be very, very much easy for you to understand and to write also. So now when you are writing task, again you will start hyphens. What does it mean? That under task, it's a plural, remember, it's tasks, not task. Task means more than one. So you will have to have multiple tasks. You can write n number of tasks under task section, and each of this will start with hyphen. That basically means that you are creating list of something. You are creating list of multiple tasks which you want to execute as a part of this specific playbook. So again, I'll give name, and the first task which I want to execute is install nginx. All right, so this will be the first task which I want to execute as a part of my this specific playbook, and with that I will be able to perform my activity. Okay, so as I given hyphen name, so what the first task which I want to create? I want to create the first task as install Nginx. So this is the first thing which I want to create. So now in order to install any software, the best or the recommended way is to use Ansible specific modules. So now a question might come in there in your mind, why not we use a shell command? Yes, we can use a shell command also. So we can write shell, and then we can write apt install nginx. This is also fine. But the best recommended way is to use Ansible specific module. So now I know that Ansible offers a module in such scenario, which is apt And apt module is used to install any package for Ubuntu or Ubuntu similar, any operating system which is similar to Ubuntu operating system. So now you see this is the way to install any of the software by using apt as the package manager. It takes name and state as an argument. So name should be the name of your application and state should be either it's present to install and absent to remove or uninstall. So now what I'm going to do, I've given the name and the next thing will be next name is the name should be, so name is this, and now you give the name of your module which is apt, and then give the name of your application. In my case it is nginx, and state as present, as simple as that. Okay, so now what happened in this case? In this case, now I'm trying to install Nginx, and the name which I gave to install Nginx is the Nginx itself, and the state which I want to do in this case is present. If I have to remove it, then it will be absent. Now you have to try to use the module instead of using the shell command, because shell command may change tomorrow. But if you're using the apt, if you're using the module, then you will always be in the safer side. Okay, so now this is something which is I've used to install Nginx. So now I have two tasks. What is the second task? The second task is to start Nginx server also. So in order to start Nginx server, again, yes, you're right. I can use my shell module again, and I can write systemctl start nginx. Yes, you are absolutely right, we can do that. But again, this is something which is Linux command. Say tomorrow, in case if the Linux command change, then you will be in trouble. So instead of doing that, Ansible offers another module to start a service, which is service itself. Now this takes the name of your software and state as started. Okay, so now what happened in this case, you see, let's try to understand entire flow, what I'm doing at this point. Here, first I gave the name of my playbook. What is the name of the playbook which I gave? Install and start Nginx server. Then what I've done, I have said host as all, because I want to implement this in all the server, which is a part of my inventory file. If I have to do in selected number of servers, then instead of giving all, I'll give the name of the group, name of the host group, in which where I have to execute this step, which is a part of my task. Now I'm just having some elevated privileges by becoming root, because installation of any software, uninstallation of a software, starting a services, these require some elevated privileges. These require some admin privileges. That is the reason I'm taking some admin privileges with me. And after that, what I've done, I have created tasks. The first task which I wanted to create is install Nginx. In order to execute install Nginx, I've used the module which is apt instead of using the shell command, shell module, because shell module will call the Linux command. Say in case tomorrow Linux command changes, then I'll be in trouble. So in order to be on safer side, what I've done is I've used the Ansible specified module itself, which is apt. And after that, what I've done, I've used another task. I've created another task, which is start Nginx server. In order to do that, I've used another module as service. In order to use instead of using another module as service, I could have used shell also. But again, it will be the same scenario. If command changes, then I'll be in trouble. So to be on safer side, what I've done is I've used the module as service. And what it has taken the name of the application and then state, which is started in this case. That's it. This is where my playbook ends, and I have written my first playbook. Isn't it easy to understand? Right? So now you also try to write your playbook. Just try to just copy the playbook which I have written at this point and then execute this. Right? So that it will be very, very simple for you to manage everything. Now, when you have written, what you have to do is you have to save and come out. So I've written the playbook. Now, next thing will be to execute this playbook. Now you know how to execute an Ansible command, because we have already seen execution of Ansible command, Ansible adhoc command. The command is Ansible itself, but to execute Ansible playbook, the command is Ansible hyphen playbook. And then you give hyphen I and then say inventory file. And then you say playbook.playbook1.yaml. That's it. Right. Again, if you can use the default path of Ansible, which is /etc /Ansible /host, you no need to give hyphen I, but it's always recommended to give hyphen I and give the file, give the name of your inventory and create it at the same place where you're executing your command. Okay, so now as I hit enter, what happened is host is not a, okay, I'm so sorry. I think I did some typo error there. Instead of host, it should be hosts, right? It should be hosts. So host is a typo error. I'm so sorry for that. Okay. So now execute the command. So now as I have executed the command, you see what it says? It says it failed at some specific level. The field become has an attribute root and could not be converted to a Boolean. It is accepting a value like true, false, whatever it is, it's accepting it. So now it's not accepting the value as root, which we have passed to become. So instead of the root, what we are going to write is become as true, because it says that this is what the value it's going to accept, you see, or yes t true or false. Let's see in case if it works now. And it's working. After I have just changed the value from root to true, it started working. So now this is one of the other troubleshooting steps which you can understand. Instead of writing root, you have to write true, and instead of writing host, you have to write hosts. So now let's try to understand this output. So now what is the first thing which you are seeing after I have executed this command? The first thing which you are seeing is the name of your playbook, which is install and start Nginx server. After that, what you're seeing? Gathering facts. Now let's try to understand what is gathering facts. So by using gathering fact, what this Ansible is doing? Ansible is getting information of the target server, like a password authentication is there or not. It is trying to set up the password authentication, configuration of your target server. What are the current configuration of your or setup of your target server? Whether whether the whether any passwordless authentication happens or not. All those configurations, all those facts are gathered by using gathering facts as an option under gathering facts. After you have done this, second thing which you got is install Nginx. With that, what you're trying to do, you're trying to install the software which is Nginx. It says changed as this. So basically, it has installed Nginx now in your target server. Now let's go back to target server. See, a few minutes back when I executed this command, it has given me the output as Nginx server could not be found. I am just pressing the up arrow and hitting the same command again. Now what it says that active and running. So what my playbook has done, my playbook has installed the software Nginx, and also it has started the Nginx services based on all the tasks which I have defined, which I have written. Right. So this is what Ansible does. This is how Ansible does. So this is something very basic which we have done with Ansible. Right. But you can do some bigger things also with Ansible. Also, one thing which I want to talk about in this Ansible is the usage of verbose. So in case if you want to see or if you want to get the same output, so this is basically the output of Ansible. After you have executed the Ansible playbook command, this is the output which you have got. But in case if you have to see this output in more details, what you will do, you will execute the same output. But now when you are executing this output, you will put some verbosity hyphen v. So you can write hyphen single v, hyphen double v, hyphen triple v. So at max it takes three v's. So more number of v's basically means more number of information, more number of details it gives you when you execute this command. So let's hit enter and let's see what it is giving. Now you see it is giving me so much of information. Not only information, it is giving me some JSON output also, wherein it's just listing down everything. So it's giving me, and it's this command. After you execute this command, it is very much essential. It's very much helpful for you to troubleshoot things. When your playbook is failing, you will be able to troubleshoot, gather more information about the playbook just by executing this, just by adding this hyphen v verbosity. This is called verbosity in playbook. Now what it is giving, it is first giving the information about your Ansible. It is giving information about your Ansible version, your Python version, Jinja template version, all these information it is giving you. Also what it is saying is it is trying to get the information of Ansible from this specific path, home ubuntu.ansible plugins modules. It's searching for this path when you are executing this Ansible command. Now, after that, what happened when you have executed? The first thing which it has done is it is trying to establish the SSH connection with your target server, right? It is trying to establish the SSH connection. And after the SSH connection has been established, it is now trying to execute the Python command, plenty of Python command, which it is trying to execute. Because what happens is, as you are executing this Ansible, in turn, it's calling some of the Python modules, which is present at some specific location, and it is executing those Python commands. So you don't need to know those Python commands. Ansible by itself, it's executing it. Now see, password authentication and all these information is present here. So everything, all the information which you need to know about after you execute the command, all these information it is going to provide you. Now it says, okay, the IP address, installing Nginx, and here it will give some sort of, you see, some sort of JSON format output also, so that it gives you all the information which is which is needed for you to execute the package. It gives you what is the name of the package. The name of the package which you are installing is nginx, multiple information which is needed for you to perform the task. Everything it gives you in this hyphen vvv verbosity options when you are putting in. It gives you more detailed output about when you execute your ansible playbook command. Right. So this is some basic thing which I explained. So in one session it is very much tough for anyone to explain all the contains multiple playbooks, right? But what I'll be doing is I have my GitHub repository. I'll be sharing the link of my GitHub repository also, and the GitHub repository will have multiple playbooks within it. Okay, so now this is something which is this is some basic playbooks. But what happens? I mean, we do not write Ansible only for some basic things. We write Ansible for some complicated things also. For example, let's talk about one more scenario where we can write some complicated scripts. For example, the scenario again, another scenario is another scenario is write Ansible playbook, write Ansible playbook. You can have the scenario to write Ansible playbook to do multiple things. To write Ansible playbook to set up Jenkins master slave, to set up Jenkins master slave, or maybe to set up Kubernetes cluster. You can have such scenario to write Ansible playbook, and by using Ansible playbook, you have to create either Jenkins master slave setup or maybe Kubernetes cluster setup. But if you're writing this, you have to do a number of different things. What are the things you have to do? First, you have to create EC2 instances. First, you have to create EC2 instances. Once your EC2 instances are created, then what you have to do? You have to configure one Jenkins, one Jenkins master server, one Jenkins master server. You have to configure, right? You have to configure one or more than one. It can be any number, more than one agent servers. You have to do that also. One or more than one agent servers you have to configure. And same thing you have to do with Kubernetes cluster also. You might have the scenario to configure one Kubernetes master server and configure one or more than one Kubernetes agent servers. You have to have these things. Now, when you are writing any Ansible playbook for this, you have multiple tasks for that. So now, normally what happens is in our real-time scenario, we don't use Ansible for instance creation. We use Terraform rather for instance creation. Terraform for instance creation. But to perform these two tasks, we use Ansible to to configure Jenkins master or Kubernetes master, and to configure one or more than one agent servers, we use Ansible itself. But to create EC2 instances, we generally use Terraform. It's not as in you cannot use Ansible to create EC2 instance. You can use Ansible also to create EC2 instance. But Terraform's specialty is that Terraform came up with this approach to create infrastructure. So Terraform is basically infrastructure creation, infrastructure provisioning, in infrastructure as a tool. For very simple example, you can use Swiggy to order normal food also, to order pizza also. Right. But there are some specific application which is meant only to order pizza. For example, Pizza Hut or Domino's, we normally use to order pizza. But it's not as in you cannot use Swiggy to order pizza. You can use Swiggy to order pizza also. But there is some specific tool which is meant to order pizza, right? Why not to use that? So similar to that, Terraform has its own specialty to create resources rather than Ansible getting involved in that. Ansible's specialty is to configure infrastructure, to decorate infrastructure, but Terraform's specialty is to create infrastructure for you. Okay, so we do this now. Why we are even talking this? Because these are the complicated setup which you might get into in your organization, in your in your scenarios. So now what you will do in such case, in this case, in case if you're writing any Ansible playbook, then Ansible playbook will be very lengthy. You have to create multiple tasks. So in this scenario, if you're creating tasks, then your task count will be huge. It will be many. It will be more than 50 tasks. More than 50 tasks you have to create in such scenario. So what you will do in such cases, it will be very tough for you to manage more than 50 tasks in such scenario. So what Ansible came up with a better solution in such scenario. Ansible came up with a better solution in such scenario. In such scenario, what we have to do is Ansible came up with a scenario called a role in such cases. Because normally what happens is when you are creating these kind of things, you have to do a number of things. You have to perhaps create some, set up some secrets, some certificates, some variables, some parameters for your agent server. Managing everything by a single playbook will be very, very tough. So what happens in this case? In this case, the best way to manage is to create a role, to which we also known as Ansible role, to which we also known as Ansible role. So Ansible role is the best way. So what Ansible role gives you? Ansible role basically helps you to manage your tasks, your various activities which you want to perform through your playbook properly. So basically it is used to properly configure. It is used to properly configure, right? It is used to properly configure and structure everything for your execution and give a proper structure and structure everything for you. So this is what Ansible role is used for. Ansible role is basically used to properly configure and properly structure everything for you. For example, let's see it in some example. So now what we are going to do is we will write Ansible, we'll try to create some Ansible role. In order to create some Ansible role, the first thing which I'm going to do is let me just create a directory which is with the name role. Now, in order to create Ansible role, there is a command. The command is ansible-galaxy, and then you say role, and then you say initialize the role and give the name of a role. For example, the role which I want to create is Jenkins. Hit enter. As I hit enter, what it says, role Jenkins was successfully created. Now if I do a ls here, I do have a role which is with the name Jenkins. So now cd into Jenkins, and then again you do a ls here. Now you see, as you executed this Ansible Galaxy command, it has created a directory which is with the name Jenkins. And within this Jenkins, a number of different files and folders are present. A bunch of files and folders are present, and those are created as you executed this Ansible Galaxy command. Okay, so now these, by using these files and folders, you will be able to structure everything for yourself. Now I'll explain you in few minutes what these defaults, files, handlers, meta, task, templates, test vars, readme is. In few minutes, I'll explain everything to you. Okay, so now first thing which I'll do is I won't be creating any separate role or creating everything there in the file. For example, if I do a ls-ltr here, then it is just listing down everything which is created as I've executed ansible-galaxy command. But I'll not be creating a separate a role here or all the files within the role, because it will be very tough to create everything in one single session. So now what I'll do is I'll take you to a repository. So now this is the repository. I'll be sharing this repository link also in my description section for this video. So please go through and check this. And you see this repository contains a number of different folders within it. You can just use any folder which you want to choose. For example, if I click on Tomcat standalone folder. So now as I click on Tomcat standalone folder, now you see what happens. It is having roles, a folder which is with the name role, and a folder and a file which is with the name site.yaml. So site.yaml is like a primary file, is a file which is at the primary location. This is the primary file which is going to, which will contain, which will be used to trigger, which will be used to call actually your role. It's a kind of parent YAML file, site.yaml. Now once you click on this, so now here what it says, okay, fine, host information is there, remote information is there, become is yes, and become method is sudo. So now after you have passed this information, what it says is take all other information from roles, or say in case if you pick up some other folder, maybe you go to the even the simpler folder, say jboss standalone, and here if you click site.yaml, here you see what it says. It says host all and all other. Here in this parent YAML file, there is no mention of any task. No task is mentioned, right? Here what it says is take all the task information which is present in this role. What is the name of the role? JBoss standalone role. Take all the information about the task from this specific role. So now what Ansible will do, Ansible will get into this file, will check, okay, fine, where I have to implement, where I have to perform all the task in all the hosts. Right now, again, Ansible will check, okay, fine, what are the task information? But there is no mention of task information here, but Ansible will read the word roles. And as Ansible will read the word roles, Ansible will understand that information about all the task is mentioned under the roles itself, under a folder like JBoss standalone, which is present in roles. So now what Ansible will do? Ansible will go to roles, and under roles, Ansible looks for a folder which is with the name JBoss standalone, the same folder which was mentioned in the parent YAML file. So now you click onto this. Now you see it is having files, handlers, tasks, template. And these files, handlers, task template contains everything, all the information which is needed for this Ansible to execute. Now you see there will be a confusion that when you executed this command, you have this thing, templates, files, readme, task, meta, defaults, vars, test, handlers. But this role is having lesser information. So what happens if you don't need some of the information? You just delete it from all those files and folders which is created by default by execution of Ansible-Galaxy command. That's it, and you will get those only which you actually need. So you can delete also, that's not a problem. You just keep whatever you need to keep for your code to be more and more valuable. Because what happens is, why do we even create a role? So normally role is created to make your Ansible playbook reusable. It can be used by everyone. It might happen that tomorrow when you grow more and more stronger in Ansible, you would like to share some of your Ansible playbook in Ansible Galaxy community, so that others also will be able to use your Ansible playbooks which you have written. By placing into Ansible Galaxy community, you will make it reusable so that others can also use it. So now let's try to understand, and these will be the structure. This is the way you will be structuring your Ansible roles. So now what is the use of all these structures, templates, files, readme, and these all things? So let's try to understand all these things one after the other. Let's first start with handlers. So now what is handlers? So now handler is basically used to handle some exceptions. For example, in our scenario, what we have done, we have started Nginx. But while you are starting, after installation of Nginx, at the time of starting of Nginx, it started throwing you some error. So what you will do, you will write some conditions there that in case if Nginx does not start, then do this and this task, and you will be able to send some emails also. So handlers is basically used for exception handling of the situation. Now another folder which it has created is tests. So tests is like putting some test cases. It can be any of the test which you write, and quite the same thing with shell script or any other script also. Vars is used to write some variables. Default is also does the same thing. Defaults is also used basically to write some variables. Same vars and defaults more and more or less do have its same job, but there are certain differences also which I'll talk in my other sections, because anyways going to create a separate video, altogether a separate video, where I'll be explaining about interview questions in Ansible. I'll be explaining about the differences of defaults and vars, because it's very important interview question also. Another thing which you're seeing here is meta. It's very important because meta contains all the metadata information about your playbook. Like if I have to write details of entire playbook, for example, if you go into meta, if you just cat the meta and within meta main.yml file, then you see it contains information about playbook, like means minimum Ansible version. It contains it contains multiple information about playbook, and so many details about playbook. It contains licensing information also. So different information you will be able to put in. For example, like the way I said, tomorrow in case if you make your role public, and if you want to just share it in community, Ansible Galaxy community, you will be able to put some information here in your meta itself saying that this is just for open source and not for commercial purpose. You will be able to put all those informations there in meta. Now task, I believe you should be very clear with task at this point. Task is something which is used, which will be executed as you run the playbook. Now readme.md file is something where you're putting information about your playbook. What are the meaning of task? What are the default value? What are the output which will come out, so that in case if you're sharing your Ansible code to someone else, others will be able to understand easily what this Ansible playbook is meant for, what will be the default output, what is the expected output, what are the expected values which you need to pass on to variables, parameters, and so on and so forth. You will be pass on everything there in readme.md file. Now, files is something which is used to provide files. Might be some certificates, or might be, say, if you are passing some index.html file to Nginx web server, so that it will be reflecting there on Nginx website. Then you will be putting those index.html file then in the files directory itself. Templates. Now, template is also used to share some templates, some basic templating, like Ansible uses Jinja 2 template for doing the job. So this is the way you will be creating roles, and I'll be putting all the roles, certain roles there in the GitHub repositories, and I'll be sharing that GitHub repository there in the description of my video also. Okay, so just to give a brief, what we have learned till now in our this session, we have covered everything which was there the topic of agenda. We have learned about installing how to install Ansible. We have also learned about passwordless authentication. We have learned about Ansible inventory. We learned about Ansible adhoc commands. We learned about Ansible playbook also. We have learned about Ansible roles also. So I'll strongly insist to my viewers to just practice everything whatever I've covered. In case if you have any problem, any issues in understanding any of the topic, just put in the comments, just make in the comments so that I'll be able to address it and I'll be able to respond to it. Okay, so I thank you everyone for watching this Ansible video. Share it with anyone to whom you think will be benefited by watching this video, and support my channel by subscribing it. Thank you everyone.